Hey, so on this channel I talk a lot about anime figures, but not a lot about actual anime, so I thought I'd do a quick recap of all the summer anime 2022, at least the ones I watch, some of my quick thoughts, as well as what I'll be watching for the fall season. So let's get this party started with the biggest bummer, which is Made in Abyss Season 2. And when I say biggest bummer, I'm not saying it was bad. In fact, it was an amazing season. But Made in Abyss is one of the few shows that can emotionally devastate you. And spoilers, it did emotionally devastate me. Watching horrible and tragic things happen, especially to innocent children, can be hard to stomach. It might give you a tummy ache like the characters got in the show. In reality, nature is freaking scary, and this show takes it up a notch. The trade-off is that you get to enjoy a very unique fantasy world and experience that wonder through the pure and curious eyes of these kids. Just a lot of raw emotions, all accompanied by some fantastic music. The season also mixes things up by introducing a new cast of explorers, and it's interesting to compare their experience and descent into the abyss versus the main crew. Once again, this show does an incredible job of balancing the wonders and horrors of fantasy, so if you can handle it, I highly recommend you check it out or catch up. But to mentally recover, I also watch Isekai Oji-san or Uncle from Another World. Now, I'm pretty sick of modern isekai. It's a very oversaturated genre at this point, so I feel like it has to do something pretty unique to warrant your time. Now, most modern isekai try to set themselves apart by having one big gimmick, and they usually put in the title like Reincarnated in Another World with a Tank, as Godzilla, or How to Make Lasagna, something silly. So when you hear the premise for this isekai in that it involves an uncle, you wouldn't think it's anything special. But what makes this story unique is that a nephew goes to the hospital to greet his uncle waking up from a coma, only to find out he has returned from a fantasy world and still has his powers. And with little knowledge of present-day society, the uncle uses his powers to make a living by making YouTube videos. The icing on the cake is that the uncle also shares his crazy stories with the nephew. It's like if you had to listen to your uncle's life stories during the holidays, but they were actually interesting. What's more is that unlike many isekais, the uncle didn't exactly have a good time in the fantasy world, because everyone treated him like a monster because he looked like an orc to them. Overall, a very surprising series that I didn't expect to enjoy and actually find pretty funny, and overall just a refreshing twist on the genre. Still sticking to isekai, there was OVERLORD Season 4. Once again, the series does a great job of world building and story, but it left me pretty unsatisfied. How can I explain it? Watching OVERLORD is like going to a restaurant. At first the food doesn't look that great, but they bring out what you think is the appetizer, and it's freaking delicious. You're ready for the main course only to realize that was the main entree and you're still hungry, and there's no more food. The animation, art, and the fights all felt pretty average or lackluster. The story constantly builds up to these crazy moments, but when it reaches the climax, it feels like it ends way too fast and doesn't deliver on the spectacle. It sucks cause OVERLORD always gets me pretty invested, and then right as things are really moving along, it just ends. But there's still a lot of fun to be had, and I really want to see how everything wraps up. Now, despite saying I'm sick of isekai, I also watched a third one, which is Devil is a Part-Timer. Technically, it's a reverse isekai, but the gimmick of a demon lord coming to our world and having to work at McDonald's is a great premise. Like so many people, I really enjoyed Season 1 back in 2013, but gave up hopes on ever getting a Season 2. So it was pretty exciting until I actually started watching it. The art and animation was a downgrade from Season 1, but like OVERLORD, a series can still be carried by the story and characters. But this didn't do that. Season 2 tries to change the dynamic by introducing a little girl claiming to be the demon lord and the hero's daughter, and for me it just didn't work and the comedy just felt pretty flat. Honestly, by the end of the season, I was pretty checked out, and the announcement of a Season 3 in 2023 didn't really excite me. Like Chorus Recoil or Licorice Recoil? Whatever it is, for me this show came out of the blue, mainly due to the fact it's an anime original, so no pre-existing media to base it on. The show is basically we live in a society, And to maintain order, we train girls to be assassins who take out any threats to the society. Because no one expects a cute kawaii high school girl to tackle a terrorist and put 5 bullets into him like John Wick. I mean, the series has the recipe for success. Girls being cute, but also high quality animation and action. Now, I watched the first episode when it came out and knew the show was gonna be good, and because of that, my curiosity was kinda satiated, so I told myself I would binge it when it finished, but I never actually did. It was one of those shows where everyone says it's good, you know it's good, and you say, I'll save it for a rainy day. When that rainy day happens, I don't know, because there are so many other series I was more curious to check out. Like the RWBY anime and if it was any good. One of the coolest things they did was release the first 3 episodes early on YouTube. And one of the stupidest things they did was release the first 3 episodes early on YouTube. In doing so, there was a big gap in between episode 3 and 4, which for me killed any momentum the series had. There was a month in between the early premiere and episode 4, so I just ended up forgetting about it. Maybe at some point I'll go back and watch it, because at least for me, it removed a lot of the cringe that made RWBY kinda hard to watch at times. But RWBY always has amazing fight choreography, and the anime seemed to do a pretty decent job at translating that. But RWBY wasn't the only Western anime adaptation, we also got Cyberpunk Edge Runners. I don't think a lot of people were looking forward to this because the game was such a mess, but my god did this series hit like a Cybertruck. I mean, it was animated by Studio Trigger, it was such a crazy roller coaster ride, and I think Netflix made the right call of dropping it all at once, so you can just binge it. In terms of new series, I think this was easily my favorite anime of the season. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but let me know who you think is best girl. And the last thing I watched for summer was another Netflix exclusive, JoJo Part 6, Part 2. Now, unlike Cyberpunk, I do think JoJo should have aired week by week instead of dropping it all at once. That way, the hype just keeps building and you have more time to digest and remember everything. I mean, the third part doesn't come out till December, so it just feels really fragmented. But not much else to say. If you're a fan of JoJo, this is a must watch as usual. But now let's talk about the fall anime, and big surprise, I am watching Chainsaw Man. And since I already went over it in my last video, I won't talk too much about it here. But man, they got all the big name artists to do the opening and the endings. The opening animation is just so much fun, and episode 2 got me so hyped. I actually went back and reread all of Chainsaw Man again. I'm also watching Core 2 of Spy Family. It's still a very fun, cute, and comforting show. Plus they got Bump of Chicken to do the opening, which is like my favorite Japanese band. Another sequel I'm watching is Mob Psycho 100 Season 3, which is also the final season, and it's looking to be the craziest because word on the street is one of the episodes has over 20,000 hand-drawn animated frames, so I'm looking forward to have my mind blown and my brain melted. This next series came out of the blue, it's Blue Lock, and that's because I almost never watch any sports anime or read any sports manga. But I thought I'd give it a chance after hearing the premise, which is basically a battle royale but for soccer or football. Japan wants to win the World Cup, and they're gonna do it by cultivating the best striker player in the world. So 300 young athletes are forced to compete against each other, and if they lose, they're not allowed to play as a striker for the rest of their lives or something. The series just makes it really over the top and absurd, and it's just a lot of fun. And after watching episode 1, I got to the point where I couldn't wait for episode 2 and ended up reading the entire manga. But because it is a sports series, I'm still gonna watch the anime just to see everything animated. But yeah, Blue Lock is the biggest surprise for me this season. Definitely recommend you giving episode 1 a shot. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna be watching for the fall season. I thought I'd keep it to 5. But I'd love to hear what you guys are watching this season. Let me know if there's anything worth checking out from last season. And if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Subscribing would be awesome, and I hope to see you on the next video. Bye bye.